What was going through your mind when you were down those two match points?
If I'm gonna lose it, I need to lose it because I was brave, not because I was afraid to lose. As
Wow.
simple as that.
Wow.
Welcome aboard EMIT Talks. On this episode, we dive deep into the success story of Nouran Gohar, the current world number one. Boasting a career of incredible records, including 4 US Opens and 3 Gouna International Open wins and more. She has certainly earned herself a legendary status on the PSA Squash Tour as one of the all-time squash royalty greats, with over 30 top titles to her name. Join us as we dive deep into the mind and world of one of the best athletes on the planet, where we discuss the life, career, mindset, rivalries, Olympic dreams, and more of a true world champion, the one they call the Terminator, right here on EMIT Talks.
Welcome aboard EMIT Talks and a very special edition. On board with us this episode, we've already introduced her, world champion, world number one, hat-trick hero of the Gouna International Squash Open. We've got none other than the finest and number one top player squash in the world, Nouran Gohar. Welcome aboard EMIT Talks.
Thank you for having me.
Nouran, EMIT Talks, like we say, we dive deeper into success. And we have a firm belief that success never really happens without failures. So we jump straight into it. And we ask you your favorite failures.
Oh. So that's a very deep conversation.
Diving deeper into success.
Midday. Yeah. So I had so it actually, I would say, starting since the start, I failed actually, because I started very old compared to other Egyptian girls. Like I started when I was 9.5. So at the very beginning, everyone was like, "That's impossible for you to achieve." Like the competition in Egypt is in squash. It's crazy, crazy tough, and when you're 9.5, you're winning tournaments. Actually, not just yet starting to pick up a racket and starting to
Wow,
hit the
what's
ball.
the normal
So,
average starting age?
5, 6.
Wow.
Yeah, so when you're 9, it's like, because the tournament started under 11. So by 9 years old, you should be winning tournaments if you want to have the potential of becoming one of the best players in the world. So I think that was the biggest challenge. Like, I won't say it was a failure, it was a challenge. And then guess what? The first 3 tournaments, I lost from the exact same girl, 3-2. First match every single time for 3 tournaments in a row. Like, I play.
Who was she?
Her name is Minna Hamed. Actually, she's a very good friend of mine now. But I lost to her 3-2 every single tournament for 3 weeks in a row. And then my parents and my coach were like, "Okay, let's stop for 6 months. You need to train properly and just get the sense." And I was a very, very bad loser. I'm still a very bad loser. But at that time, I couldn't just accept the fact that I'm losing. So they were like, "Okay, let's just wait, train, get more experience, know what we're doing." And then it was a good plan, I think, because when I went back, I started winning again and got to number one in my age group. So I feel like that was the main failure at the beginning.
Well, you say the failure was that you started too late. But then
Yeah.
again, your first title, you won at 16 years of
Yes,
age.
yeah.
And very soon after that, in a teenage era, you dropped, or you didn't drop, you rose into the top 15 in the world.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Uh, I just loved being on court. I think that was the main point. Like, I didn't really care about results. Obviously, as I said, like, I didn't like to lose, but I cared about enjoying my time on court. I just like to run around the ball, hitting some balls. I would spend 3-4 hours just soloing, hitting the ball by myself, not even having a partner. So I just like the fact of I was challenging myself before challenging anyone else. Like, in any other racket sport, you have to have your opponent on the other side of the net, like tennis or badminton or whatever. But in squash, it's like you can still practice with yourself. You can still hit the ball. You can still challenge yourself in solo practices. Like, okay, today I hit 10 in a row. Tomorrow I want to hit 20. So I feel like this was what attracted me a lot, and made me want to spend even more time and invest in myself in this sport, I feel.
But does that make it a very lonely sport, especially
Yes,
when you're on
yes.
the top?
Yes, it becomes very, very lonely, and people don't realize that. They always say it's very cool for you guys. You're traveling around the world like from 12 to 14 times a year, different countries, different continents. But believe me, all we see is the hotel room and the squash court. And like, I've gone to like really cool cities and I've seen none of them. But recently I've started to say, okay, I need to have a day or two to explore, because you need to find the balance. It's not only about squash. It's more about that. So you have to take advantage that you're traveling the world and seeing stuff. But as you're saying, like, it gets very lonely, especially at the very end of the tournament, because it's only four or two players at the very end in the semis and the final. And obviously you're not gonna chat with your opponent like a couple of hours before the match. So you need to focus on yourself. You need to be by yourself. And obviously you're not having your team every single time with you. So you can be just having breakfast lonely in a very depressing hotel or something in the UK when it's like very gloomy, and you still have to find the positive in it. So, and it's a job at the end of the day. But again, I feel like you need to be also seeing the positive side of it, that you're still very lucky that you're doing what you love and it's still a job and you're making money out of it and you're making success out of it. And um yeah, so I feel like at the end of the day, even if it's hard, I'm still feeling very lucky to be able to do it.
And we're very lucky to have you and your fellow Egyptian squash compatriots at the top of the game. And I kind of want to get deeper into that championship mindset. Like you said, people don't really realize how lonely it is out on tour. And you've been on the tour for quite a while. You've seen what works and what doesn't
Yes.
from a mental perspective. So if I were to ask you to summarize the formula of
Yeah.
success of being on tour, what would you say about that?
I feel like it's phases, and then when you think you got it, you actually just have a slap on the face, and you're like, no, I didn't get it still. So I had different phases in my career. I'm talking about my professional career. So actually, until I was 17, I didn't decide I wanted to become a professional squash player, because I was still at school. Got a couple of offers from big Ivy schools like Harvard or Penn, and then at that time it wasn't really a thing for, especially for girls, to like just go abroad and study, having a scholarship because of squash. And at that same time, I won my first World Junior Championship. And then a week after, I beat Nicole David, and she was my idol growing up, 8 times world champion. And just like beating her was like, oh my God.
Was that in Hong Kong?
It was in China,
All
actually.
right.
So that was the year before Hong Kong.
We'll talk about Hong Kong because that was special.
So that was when I was 17. And then I broke into the top 10 when I was 17. So I was world number 8 when I was 17. And then I was like, okay, I think I want to become a professional squash player now. And I decided to take a gap year, which was very unusual in Egypt as well. And my parents were very supportive about it. And they told me, okay, just like, I gave up on big colleges again, and even in France and in the US and in the UK. And then I'm like, I want to go pro. And they're like, okay, whatever you want. And then I decided to do this for 6 months. And then I got very, so I think as well, I was on a cloud, like feeling, okay, I've got all the good players. I'm beating everyone. I beat the legend of the game. I'm world number 8. And then, bam, like a slap on the face again. Like, no, you're still young.
At such a young age, you
Exactly.
probably didn't understand what it means to go
Exactly.
pro, what it would have to take.
I
And what
took
you
it
have to
for granted,
sacrifice.
I would say. And I got to world number 2 when I was 18. And then a couple of months later, I dropped to number 8, which is still not bad for my age. But then at that time, it was a shock, because I was like, I should be beating all of them. I'm beating them. So why am I going, like, I'm not going forward, I'm going backward now. And then, and then I started to get injured. I gained a lot of weight, 10 kilos, and then I started so I did study engineering in college. So I decided to go to AUC, study engineering. And then for the first year, it was amazing. In the third year, it did hit me, squash-wise and studying-wise. So I was still doing well, but I was just overwhelmed. I felt very unhappy. I got depressed. I didn't know it was depression until like after that I realized, okay, I was depressed for a long year, and that's where I had my downfall. I would say that my massive downfall at that time when I was 20. And at that time I decided, okay, I don't want to pursue squash. I want to retire when I was 20
Did you
actually.
feel pressured at the time to prioritize either my education or my professional squash career, or was it something else?
I don't think it was the combination of both. I think it was just accumulated pressure that I'm putting on myself. No one was putting it on me, and I think the expectations were really high because I've just, like as I said, like when you're 17 beating everyone, you're the underdog, you don't care. And then after that there's people coming from lower ranked players that you should be beating, but actually you're still not stable, you know, like you're still emotion wise, and you don't have the experience. Maybe you have what it takes to beat a top player one day on your good day, but you don't have the consistency of doing it for every single time you're playing. And I didn't understand this until I was maybe 24, you know. And at that time, even if someone explains it to me, I wouldn't get it. I need to live it to be able to understand what it takes to be at the very top of the game and being consistently there. And it took me, so I got to war number two when I was 18, and then it took me 5 years to go back to war number two. But at that time, it was a very different war number two, I would say. I was more stable. I was more solid. I could understand what's going on. I could understand pressure. When I was 17, I didn't even understand what pressure is. I can hear the word, but I don't get the meaning out of it. You know what I mean?
And as time progressed, now that you understand pressure, but as time progresses, do you also understand the element of experience
Yes,
and
for
and,
sure.
and, and and the different perspectives and levels that it adds to your game?
I used to hate the word experience because usually sometimes I would be very close to clinch a match out of a top player, and then my coaches would, and then I lose it at the very end when it's like 2-all, and then I can't get rid of the nerves, or I'm too excited, or they have more experience and then they can clinch the game. And then I would just go off court, and my coach is like, "You did great, but it's experience." And I would hate the word. I'm like, "Come on, experience, experience, experience." And now I understand the importance of it because I use it actually now. But again, if I wasn't to live these moments of like losing matches that I should have won, or being in the underdog shoe and failing, I wouldn't like have the experience of knowing how to close it out now.
And speaking of using that experience, we literally just witnessed that maybe 48 hours ago, semi-final of the Gouna International Squash Open, you versus Hania Al-Hamami, world number 3. You are down 2 match points in the fourth, 2 match points. And I'm going to be very honest with you, right? So my job, because I was
Yes.
emceeing at the time, my job is to be ready at the end of the game.
So you were stepping on court.
I grab
you
my
were-
mic. I grab my microphone because I'm ready. It looks like
And
it's
then
2 match
it's-
points.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden you manage to save those 2 match points, win the fourth, and then come back in the fifth, completely gear down, almost a different level of physicality. And until this point, I'm curious, what was going through your mind when you were down those 2 match points?
If I'm gonna lose it, I need to lose it because I was brave, not because I was afraid to lose. As
Wow.
simple as that.
Wow.
It's like if you lose, it's you because you were brave enough to do something, and then it didn't work. It didn't work. But don't be passive. Don't be defensive. I feel like the best way to get out of a like a match ball down or something is actually to attack, not to be defensive.
Wow. And then in the final, the following day, versus Amina Orfi, up and coming rising Egyptian star. All of a sudden, again, it was your form was almost back to the first day of the tournament. Literally, the Terminator was on the court. I felt, and I was also listening to the Squash
Yeah.
TV commentary. Lisa Aitken was also saying, you were hitting the ball yesterday harder
Yeah.
than you have probably all tournament long. Was that part of your game plan? Were you saving some of that energy, or was just that the final Nouran?
I think especially with Amina, obviously she's known for hitting the ball hard and everything. So I feel like everyone shies away from this and tries to contain her or like play slower pace or but I'm also known for being one of the hardest hitters on tour. So I always think again like I shouldn't be shying away from this. I should be actually imposing my game, and that was the mindset. So maybe because she's actually hitting the ball harder than anyone else on tour, so when I want to hit it like even harder, it's very hard then.
It was an incredible match, and you made this tournament here in Gouna your own. You were the hat trick hero. You won it 3 times in a row. You like it here.
I love it.
You like the Red Sea.
I love it. I love it. I love to come back.
How does it compare with all the other stops in the tours? Because there's some incredible
Yes.
stops out there.
No, but as I love like when they ask me like, would you go for a beach vacation or a city vacation? Obviously, I would go for beach. So obviously here it's one of the most amazing beaches you can find. And as I said, sometimes we go to very gloomy cities and very rainy and dull. And obviously Gouna is beautiful. Like, and I feel again very lucky to have someone like Amr Mensi who had the idea of actually like bringing us here and also without the sponsors believing in us and actually supporting us, we wouldn't be here, and we will be back for 13 years now. So I feel that this is this is us being very lucky to be able to have people like this like really believing in us and supporting us. Yeah.
And we're super lucky to have you, Egyptian queens and kings, as champions of the world. And speaking of the queens, we do have the big four now officially. They were the big three, and with Amina reaching her first platinum final, I think we're heading into the big four zone. But I believe we raise each other's game.
For sure. Yeah.
And then we have this epic, legendary rivalry between you and Noor Sherbini.
Yes.
That's been going on for years.
And that's my take on this. Obviously, me, Sherbin, and Hania, we were the only three to win every single platinum event for the past 4 or 5 years, I think. So that's where the name comes from. But I feel like Sherbini and I, we have been contesting the big finals. Like I think we were playing 11 finals in a row the past year. So every single event that was played on the squash tour, it was only me and Sherbini reaching the final. So again, obviously, being in the semis, being in the top four, it's an amazing achievement. But I feel it takes an extra gear to be able to be in the final, and then an extra gear to be able to convert these into titles. And again, I think the consistency here is very different. So obviously when you're talking about an upcoming, obviously she has what it takes to be there, but again, the consistency is still not there. So I feel like someone like Sherbini, you cannot compare it to someone who's still 17, and yeah. So it's different. Like it's a different matchup. It's a different mentality. It's a different. It's just like you're seeing the future. You know, like obviously Sherbini has achieved so much when she was younger. I've achieved so much when I was younger. Hania same. But yeah, I feel like it's very exciting to have these different as well personalities and different type of games, and then when you put them together, you have just an amazing matchup.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that's why I want to focus on this epic
Yeah.
rivalry. Nouran Gohar, Noor Sherbini. Do you feel differently when it's Noor on court than when it's anyone else? Are you guys actually friends? Are you close? Because this is, for me, this is like at, Federer Nadal
Yes.
levels or Messi Ronaldo levels. And I don't feel that the Egyptian sports community really appreciates how intense this rivalry is. So
No,
tell us a bit more
I
about
actually
it.
think last year they were very engaged about that, because even the ranking wise, like it was very close between us. We were, as I said, contesting every single final together. So no, it was very intense, and you can see like Noor's camp, my camp getting behind us. So it was very exciting for us as well, I would say. Me and Noor, definitely, it's a big rivalry, and one that I think after we retire we will appreciate it big time. Obviously, I think what makes it different as well, we have very big respect to each other. I have very respect to her, a very big respect to what she has achieved. Same for her, and I feel that that's what makes it different. Like we're rivals, but we have a lot of respect to each other. Obviously, you cannot be best friends with your rival for sure. At least when you're competing, but you can have a lot of respect, and we do have this, I think.
How much would you say you've raised each other's games in the past few years?
Big time, huge. And we keep on saying it in interviews. Like, whenever she comes back at me, sometimes she would come back and shop me in three, and then I'll be back in the lab, like, practicing and figuring out like plans and how to do this. It's like a puzzle, you know. And then I would go back and then beat her, and then she would come back at me in the next tournament. And it was like, we only have 2 weeks in between tournaments, and it's always like big tournaments: British Open, World Championship, World Tour Finals. So it's like, you can't just sit there and do nothing. If you sit there and do nothing, then you're gonna for sure lose the next match. So it was like, having her actually made me raise my game big time, for sure.
And it made us enjoy one of the greatest rivalries in modern sport history. And thankfully, it's a rivalry that continues to give and may continue for many years. I also believe and feel that success really comes from how we talk to ourselves
Yes,
before we talk to others.
for sure.
So I'm curious about that. How does world number one, how does Nouran Gohar talk to herself? You know, what's your own internal pep talk? What's your own internal dialogue?
I used to be very harsh on myself, I would say. I don't want to say this, but I'm kind of a perfectionist in everything I do in life. So I used to blame myself a lot. And again, I would be very harsh on myself, especially when I lose. And then when I understood that I'm more than an athlete, and I could see myself as nearly a product, you know, that I'm trying to develop. And it's like, I want to have the new version, the better version, the better version. When I changed this perspective and this mindset, it just completely shifted the way I was even thinking on court. So it made me more positive in the way I'm going for shots, and I just feel like it took out a lot of pressure. I used to put a lot of pressure on myself, not because of anything, because I really wanted to achieve. I want to achieve more and more and more. But the more you want it, the more you're going to lose it, actually. And that's what I learned from losing big matches, because I really wanted them. Especially like losing 3 finals and the World Championship, because I really wanted it badly, badly, badly. I learned to let it go, you know, just let it go. Do whatever you can. The result is not in your hands, it's in God's hands. What is in your hand is your performance and the work you put in. And I could trust the work that I put in, because I put all my heart in whatever I do, and I wasn't like not giving 100%. I was every single day, even if I'm tired, I'm giving 150%. So in that case, I was proud of myself. You know, I learned to be proud of the work that I'm doing, not proud of the results that I'm achieving.
Wow. Perfectionist in everything that you do. I wonder why. Engineer and world number one squash player. But on a personal level, you actually also went and got married to another world champion, because being a single world champion isn't enough. You're married to Ziad El Sisi, the face of Egyptian fencing at the moment. And of course, that throws in the question, 2 professional top-level athletes. That's not easy.
It gets very intense sometimes.
Right?
You don't want to see us arguing. It gets very intense.
How is it? How do you maintain life? You're on tour. He's on tour. You've got a very packed schedule. So does he. How do you guys make it work?
We sometimes coordinate the flights. Seriously.
To be on the same flight together.
No,
Wow.
seriously, it happened once. Like when I was injured, so actually I went to the Red Bull Rehab Center, which was in Austria. And then he was going for a trip in Munich. To Budapest. Sorry, he had a tournament there, and then we took a flight, both of us from from New York to Munich, and then in the passport control, like he went left, I went right, because he's going to Budapest. He's gonna catch another flight to Budapest. I'm going by train to Austria. So it was just funny, like that. The police officer was like, "What? Are you guys married?" So I was like, "Yeah." "Where are you going?" I said Austria. He said Budapest. So he's like, "Well," so yeah, it's crazy. It's the schedule is just crazy. Sometimes we don't see each other for maybe a couple of months, and but I think I'm very lucky to have him, because he understands how important it is for me to be doing what I'm doing, and I do understand as well. I feel like if he was to marry like just a usual person who has a 9 to 5 job, it would be
Just the usual, non-world champion, non-engineer.
He's actually an engineer too.
Yeah, man. Who would have guessed?
Actually, when I was talking to my brothers and stuff, and they were like, "Okay, tell us more about him," and then I'm like, "Yeah, he's he's an Olympian. He's like top 16 in the world at that time. Mechanical engineer. He's doing his master. He's like." Is that your male virgin or what? But in character wise, we're so different though. Like he's very chilled, laid back. I'm more stressed. So it definitely helped to have someone like him to in my corner. He gave me more peaceful time. I gave him more intensity. So I think the combo was really good for us. We were actually talking about this that I think it was a good alhamdulillah, I think it was a good matchup.
Sounds like it. And yesterday, after, while you were lifting your trophy, I did ask you, and you did mention it takes a village to support.
Yeah.
How would you advise, especially being in such a situation, how do you advise supporting each other? Especially if both of you are top level professionals, doesn't only have to apply in sports. You can
Yeah.
have people who have
Yes.
professional jobs. What would your, a capsule of advice be to people?
I think for us it's really good because he's a professional athlete yet not a squash player, so it's not a lot of squash in the house because that would be just crazy. But at the same time, I don't need to explain myself to him like how I feel because no one would understand what I'm feeling except someone who was in my position and in the same situation. And obviously, he's world number one. He went to the Olympics, so I don't need to explain to him pressure. I don't need to explain to him how I'm feeling before a match, after a match. So he gets it. Like maybe I can be like just yelling for no reason, but like there's no rationale behind it. But he gets it. Okay, she's pressured now. So I feel like when you're in the same like situation or you live the same situation, you should be more understanding. And then it takes like some days it's not, because people say it's like 50-50. It's not 50-50. Some days he only has 10. I have to bring up the 90 to be able to keep on going. And then some days I only have 10, he needs to bring the 90. So I feel we kind of understood this, but again, it's a work in progress. And I would be lying if I say it's very easy. We're always like understanding each other. No, it doesn't get easy. Sometimes we just hate what we're doing. We're like, why are we doing this to each other? Why we're not just staying at house like a normal couple, having a 9 to 5 job
As engineers.
as engineers. والناس محترمة. Because again, like sports, they bring out of you the worst emotions yet the best emotions as well. And again, we put a lot of work in, so when you lose you feel like you lost your entire life. Like, why am I doing this? You start questioning your entire life. And when you're winning, you're just like on
On the
pure
high.
yeah,
On the
on a high. It's like pure happiness, and it's like a drug. I always say it's like you're addicted to it. You always want it back. You always want it back, but there is no guarantee that you will get it back. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like, okay, I'm gonna put in the work, I'm gonna for sure win the next tournament. You might get injured, you might go. And then to understand, so that's what I think what he did different with me is that he made me understand, okay, that sports is very important, but it's not our entire life. Like, there is more to life than sports. And when you think about it that way, you actually perform better. And you don't have the pressure of like, okay, I need to win. No, I want to win. There's a big difference between I want to win and I need to win.
That's a
Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing to say. Discovering and finding the differences between what you want and what you need, and labeling them
Yeah,
as that.
exactly. Yeah.
Olympics coming up. We might see you and Ziad in the Olympics.
Hopefully.
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 And that's actually a point that I want to move on to, because rumor has it, and I've been told this is not necessarily confirmed, but we got so happy that squash, for the
Yeah.
first time ever, Olympics LA 28. Egyptians thought, amazing, we're getting 3 medals for the men and 3 medals for the women. It's our sport.
It's done.
Alas, it's in the bag. And then the IOC seems to have dropped a bit of a shocker, saying that each federation is only allowed to send 1 athlete for both the male and the female.
No, that's what people say, but this is not the decision. The decision was that because I was lucky enough to be chosen as the athlete representative for the presentation, actually, for LA 2028. But at that time, our ask was to have a main draw of 32 players. So then the decision came up recently is that it's only going to be 16 instead of 32. So then
But
people
why is that? Is that like a
because
budget issue? Is that like an issue of space, hotel rooms, tickets?
I'm not an expert to be honest, but I also know that for example, the Olympic Village, they don't, because they added 6 sports, so the number of athletes, they can't just like increase the number of athletes drastically like that. And there is also team sports, so it's not like lacrosse or baseball or whatever. And then there is squash. So again, I don't know what's the rationale behind it 100%, but obviously it might be a budget, it might be the number that they cannot accommodate that much of athletes in the village or something. But they didn't confirm how many athletes per country yet.
So is there a way to pressure the
So
decision
it's,
somehow? What can we do? How can we head? I mean,
yeah, just pray.
what would you feel would be the fair number that each country can send? Because as it
it's
stands,
tough.
maybe I could be world number 2, and if I'm
Yes,
only allowed to send one,
exactly.
I spend my whole life becoming the world number 2,
Yeah.
and then not being able to call myself an
But
Olympian.
that's the problem with Olympics in general, not only in squash. Like we have seen a lot of like you can see a world number 3 not going to the Olympics, and because again, Olympics obviously it's the biggest stage for any athlete to be playing there. But again, winning a world championship is actually harder than the Olympics because the qualification sometimes is unfair for big names and big athletes. You might get injured for a couple of tournaments, yet you're one of the most consistent athletes throughout the last 3 years, and you don't go. So I feel like again, it's harsh, but because they're always looking for universality, diversity. So you can find athletes that usually should be like winning or contenders in big titles, yet they're not there. So I think it's not an issue with squash specifically being in the Olympics. It's in general in any sport for the Olympics.
And speaking of universality, it just got announced that Universal Studios is going to be the host venue in LA for the squash court. So as the Terminator, and actually being based most of the year when you can, being in the States, do you feel that gives you home court advantage if Nouran's name is on the table for the Olympics?
Hopefully, yeah. I just obviously I feel like I have 2 homes now since I've been spending a lot of time in the U.S. and then obviously Egypt is always my home. So I feel like I get an advantage over the other players that I have 2 homes. That when I go to the U.S. I find a lot of like familiar faces, a lot of people that I like. I've had a community there, and then when I come back to Egypt, I have a full support from my family. So I just love playing in these 2 countries for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. And I want to focus a bit. Well, lastly, I want to focus on our Egyptian local squash scene, and I get asked this a lot anywhere I travel. Why are Egyptians so good at squash? Why do you feel that is?
I feel it's when they ask like why Brazil are really good in soccer, it's a bit of the same question and the same answer. I would say it's something like it's the way we play the game. It's a bit different than anyone else. Like obviously the game was developed by the British, and they like to play more like a basic game, like length and long rallies. We as Egyptians we like to break the rules, right? Like there's no rules. We just like to hit the nick whenever we want. So I feel like we brought this excitement to the game. So it took some time from the other people to understand what we were actually doing on court. And obviously I feel like it all started with having Barada. So he was the icon of squash. Like he was the legendary Baroda that everyone wants to become like him. And obviously having the tournament at the pyramids was huge for us. You could see like in the videos, like the crowd, how they excited. They
I
were
was
like,
there.
yeah, they were like as if they were watching a soccer like game. They were very like enthusiastic, like very behind him, like cheering loudly. So I feel it's like having Mohamed Salah in soccer. Like you have an icon, and then everyone wants to follow this icon. So I feel like we had several like champions after him, like Shabana,
Karim
Romy,
Darwish, Rami
all
Ashour.
of these names. So you have generations coming up. They are looking up to these people, and they're watching them, and then they can be actually practicing in the court next to them. So it's just having your idol close to you like that makes the dream even easier to achieve, I feel.
Speaking of the dream, looking forward, what is the dream? for Nouran?
I think the Olympics for sure. Like obviously before squash, getting into the Olympics, it was always about becoming world number one and world champion. So thankfully, alhamdulillah, I have achieved both. So now it's like a new goal, a new achievement. Hopefully, to be able to achieve is the Olympics for sure.
Nouran Gohar, we totally hope to see that Olympic gold medal
Hopefully.
around your neck years from now. Thank you very much for joining us aboard EMIT Talks, and from one success to the next, I guess.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.